Okay, I want to take a few minutes to take a look at Google Sheets and the appropriate settings you might want to check when you're trying to do a scatter plot. I've got some data here where my intention is to show a set of values that would be X values, and then maybe two potential sets of data that would be Y values. We'll start by just highlighting the first two columns and going into the Insert tab to insert a chart. And it comes up with a bar chart, which is not the kind of chart we want to take a look at here. So scroll down to scatter chart, okay? And this data actually looks pretty good. You'll see the x-axis is 0 through 20 as our data indicates, okay? Our data is not put in exact intervals, which will have some meaning in a moment, but the graph has appropriately been interpreted so that there's an evenly spaced x-axis. However, notice that in the corner here it says use column D as labels. That might not be the setting that you've got in your Google Sheets. It may be something else. So let's take a look at what happens when you take that off. If you don't use the column D as headers, then I'm sorry, as labels, then you get both of the data sets. Here is the value 0, 1, 3, 4, etc. So these are clearly the x-axis, what I intended to be the x-axis data points, being graphed as y values, and there's no markings on the x-axis at all. I'm not sure when and where this would be a good choice, but it's clearly not a great choice. And if you see your data like this and your x-axis is unlabeled, don't stop there. So let's turn that back on. Use column D as labels. This looks right. The data looks right. We're now showing values of y versus x, which is great. This is kind of where you want to be, and you could do more editing to like label your axes and so on. But the big issue I think people are struggling with is this, choosing a scatter graph and getting all of the data plotted against some sort of unlabeled or unknown x-axis. Let's go back one more time here using column D as labels. You'll see there's also this idea that you could aggregate column D. I want you to see what that looks like, because in some cases people have this set as their default, and now you certainly have an x-axis and you certainly have a y-axis, and it's showing the x-axis data, so it looks pretty good at first glance. But take a look at the spacing on the x-axis from 0 to 1. That distance on your screen is 0 to 1. Then the exact same distance is 1 to 3, and the exact same distance is 4 to 7, and the exact same distance is 7 through 12, and the exact same distance is 12 through 20. So these are now these might as well be text numbers here. This could be USA, Brazil, China, and so on. It could be some form of economic data, and we just have these as labels, not numerical values. So that could be something that happens, and it may be the default setting for your computer. So when you get into Google Sheets and you are trying to graph data, turn off the aggregate D, column D, or aggregate column. It shows D because that was my first column, and make sure that you have column D, your first column, used as labels. That will give you an appropriately scaled x-axis, and it will only graph your y values versus x. Let's make sure it's working for more than one set of data. Okay, I'm going to delete the graph, and I'm going to highlight all my data sets. Okay, back to Insert, Chart, and again, I want to select the scatter chart. Okay, And so now, again, I've got column D as labels. That's my first column. And now you can see, I'll just turn this off now. Now you can see that I've got my x-axis labeled appropriately. I've got two sets of y data. In red is the increasing data, which must be my my second column here, and in blue is the decreasing data, which is that first set of y data. Okay, so that's those are the settings using the first column as labels. That seems to be the way to go. All right, I hope this is helpful. Take care.